Jason Williams' shooting. Back in 2002, Jason Williams was hosting guests at his 65-room mansion in New Jersey. A retired Nets power forward living large after a leg injury ended his career. That night, he was showing off his gun collection, something he apparently did a lot. Costas Christofi, a 55-year-old limousine driver who had worked with the Harlem Globetrotters, was there. He was just doing his job, waiting to drive some guests home. What happened next would destroy everything. Williams picked up a 12-gauge shotgun and snapped it closed. The gun discharged. The blast hit Christofi directly in the chest from close range. He collapsed and died almost instantly. A man who had nothing to do with anything. Gone in a second because someone wanted to show off. But instead of calling 911, Williams and his guests spent the next hour trying to cover it up. They wiped down the gun. They put it in the victim's hands. They tried dragging the body toward the pool to make it look like something else. One witness said Williams kept insisting the driver grab the weapon himself, which is absolutely insane. The cover-up fell apart fast. Too many witnesses, too much evidence. Williams was arrested and charged with aggravated manslaughter. The first trial in 2004 ended with a hung jury on the most serious charge. He got convicted of covering up the shooting, but walked away with probation. That should have been the end. It was not. After years of appeals and legal battles, Williams pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in 2010. He got 5 years in prison, served less than 2. Since getting out in 2012, he has tried rebuilding through rehab and motivational speaking, but Christofi's family never got real justice. A man lost his life because someone wanted to impress a room full of people, and the system let the shooter walk after barely any time behind bars. The whole thing was senseless from start to finish. Ruben Patterson's conviction. Ruben Patterson called himself the Kobe Stopper. His defense was suffocating. Off the court was a different story. In September 2001, he was arrested and charged with attempted rape. The victim was his family's nanny. According to court documents, the assault happened while his wife and children were in another part of the house. She fought back and escaped. Patterson pleaded guilty to attempted rape in the 3rd degree. His sentence was 15 days in jail and mandatory registration as a sex offender. The NBA did nothing. No suspension, no fine. He kept playing like nothing happened. His career ended quietly in 2007, but his name stayed on sex offender registries. The league's silence said everything. Lorenzen Wright's murder. Lorenzen Wright was Memphis royalty, high school legend at Booker T. Washington, state champion, the kind of player an entire city claimed as their own. When the Clippers picked him 7th overall in 1996, it felt like destiny. He played 13 seasons in the league, bouncing between franchises, but always representing where he came from. Everyone who knew him talked about his smile, his generosity, his presence. He was loved in a way few athletes ever are. On July 18, 2010, Wright left his ex-wife Shara's house in Collierville, Tennessee. He was carrying a large sum of cash. He was supposed to meet someone. Nobody knows exactly who or why. Around midnight, his phone dialed 911. All dispatchers heard were gunshots. Loud, repeated, then silence. The call was not traced properly. Nobody came to help. 10 days passed before anyone found him. His body was discovered in a field near Germantown, partially hidden by overgrown grass. He had been shot multiple times. The scene was gruesome. The news hit Memphis like a punch to the chest. Vigils popped up across the city. His mother, Deborah Marion, stood in front of cameras begging for answers. The community demanded justice. But the case went cold. Years passed with no arrests. Investigators chased leads that went nowhere. Wright's family held their breath every time the phone rang, hoping this would be the call. It never was. The silence was unbearable. Then in 2017, everything broke open. Shara Wright and a man named Billy Ray Turner were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors laid out the motive: life insurance money, over $1 million. They killed Lorenzen for a payout. His own ex-wife, the mother of his children, she planned it. She helped execute it. She sat in that community, watched them mourn, accepted their condolences, knowing exactly what happened and why. Shara pleaded guilty in 2019 and received 30 years. Turner stood trial and was convicted in 2022. He got life without parole. The betrayal was almost impossible to process. Wright's children lost their father to someone who was supposed to protect him. His mother spent nearly a decade fighting for answers she never should have needed. She finally got them, but nothing could bring her son back. Dennis Rodman's spiral. Dennis Rodman won 5 championships, led the league in rebounds 7 straight years, Hall of Fame inductee in 2011, but after basketball ended, so did any sense of stability. The arrests piled up: domestic violence, drunk driving, disorderly conduct. In 2008, he appeared on Celebrity Rehab and admitted he was an alcoholic. Then came North Korea. Starting in 2013, Rodman made multiple trips to Pyongyang as a guest of Kim Jong-un. He called the dictator his friend, sang happy birthday to him on live television. The backlash was brutal. Former teammates distanced themselves. Sponsors vanished. His personal life kept falling apart. Failed marriages, estranged children, constant rehab stints. Rodman is still around, but the joy that once defined his game feels like ancient history. Vin Baker's collapse. Vin Baker was a 4-time All-Star who made over $100 million during his career. Olympic team in 2000. By any measure, he had reached the top. Then he drank almost all of it away. The problem started quietly in Seattle. Bottles hidden in lockers, showing up to practice hungover, his play declining in ways coaches could not explain. By the time Boston signed him, everyone could see something was deeply wrong. The Celtics eventually let him go. He bounced around for a few more years, a shell of his former self, before retiring in 2006. Without basketball, things got worse. Baker later admitted he drank away nearly his entire fortune. Properties went into foreclosure. Investments collapsed. He found himself standing behind the counter at a Starbucks in Rhode Island making $12 an hour. A guy who once commanded max contracts was now making lattes for strangers. The contrast was brutal and public. But Baker did something most people in his situation cannot. He got sober. He climbed back. With help from Doc Rivers and other mentors who refused to give up on him, he started rebuilding piece by piece. He got into ministry, became a G League assistant coach, eventually landed a role with the Milwaukee Bucks organization. His story became about redemption instead of ruin. The money is gone. What he found was worth more. Delonte West's unraveling. Delonte West was a first-round pick in 2004, played 8 seasons with Boston, Seattle, Cleveland, and Dallas. Solid point guard, good shooter, respected by teammates, but behind the scenes, he was fighting battles nobody could see. West has been open about his bipolar disorder diagnosis. Managing it while performing at the highest level proved nearly impossible. Mood swings, erratic behavior, medication struggles. By 2012, his career was over. That is when the real trouble started. In 2016, photos surfaced showing West wandering the streets of Houston, barefoot and clearly homeless. The images shocked the basketball world. A guy who had played alongside LeBron James was now living on the margins. Offers of help poured in. Mark Cuban personally intervened multiple times, paying for treatment and offering resources. There were moments of hope. West would resurface, looking healthier, talking about turning things around. Then he would disappear again. In 2020, video emerged of him being beaten on a highway in Dallas. The footage was brutal and hard to watch. He was hospitalized and entered treatment once more. As of now, West continues fighting. His story remains unfinished, a reminder that mental illness does not care about fame or money. Sometimes even love and resources cannot outrun what is chasing someone through the night. Paul Pierce's stabbing. On September 25th, 2000, Paul Pierce walked into a Boston nightclub called the Buzz Club. He was 22 years old and coming off a promising second season with the Celtics. By closing time, he would be fighting for his life. A fight broke out. Pierce was stabbed 11 times, once in the face, once in the back, within a centimeter of his heart. He was also hit in the head with a bottle. Somehow, he survived. Doctors said the wound near his heart should have killed him. He spent weeks recovering and underwent multiple surgeries. For years afterward, he wore a bulletproof vest to games, terrified someone would come to finish what started that night. 2 men were eventually convicted for the attack. Neither ever explained why they went after Pierce. Despite everything, he came back. 19 seasons, championship in 2008, finals MVP, 10 All-Star teams. The stabbing could have ended everything before it truly started. Instead, it became a footnote in a Hall of Fame resume. But Pierce never forgot how close he came to losing it all in one violent moment. Sebastian Telfair's arrest. Sebastian Telfair was supposed to be the next great New York City point guard. Lincoln High School in Brooklyn, magazine covers, documentary crews following his every move. ESPN ranked him top 5. Portland picked him 13th overall when he was just 18. The hype was massive. The reality fell short. Telfair bounced around 10 teams over a decade, averaged less than 8 points. The potential never translated. In June 2017, he was pulled over in Brooklyn. Police found a loaded loaded pistol, an extended magazine, and body armor in his vehicle, all illegal in New York. In February 2019, he was convicted and sentenced to 3.5 years in state prison. The documentary that once followed his rise now feels like a relic from another era. The kid who was supposed to bring glory back to New York basketball became another cautionary tale about how fast things can fall apart. Bison Dele's disappearance. Bison Dele won a championship with the Bulls in 1997, played 11 seasons in the league, made good money, had respect. Then he walked away from a contract worth $36 million because he wanted something different. Most players dream of max deals. Dele dreamed of sailing the world. In summer 2002, he set off on a catamaran from Tahiti with 3 others, his girlfriend Serena Carlin, boat captain Bertrand Saldo, and his brother Miles DeBoer. The plan was to explore the Pacific, live freely, leave basketball behind. None of them were ever seen again. The investigation uncovered a trail of fraud and deception. Miles returned to the mainland alone and immediately started forging Dele's signature on checks. He withdrew tens of thousands of dollars from his brother's accounts. He tried purchasing over $100,000 in gold using Dele's money. When authorities confronted him, he claimed Dele had died of an asthma attack at sea and been buried overboard. That made no sense. Dele was healthy. There was no history of serious illness. What investigators came to believe was far darker. Miles killed everyone on that boat and dumped their bodies in the Pacific Ocean. His girlfriend, the captain, his own brother, all gone without a trace. Before police could arrest him, Miles overdosed on insulin in what appeared to be a suicide attempt. He fell into a coma and died on December 27, 2002. The full truth went with him. Dele's body was never recovered, neither was Serena's nor Bertrand's. A man who gave up millions to find peace ended up erased by the person closest to him. The case remains officially unsolved, one of the most disturbing mysteries in sports history, with no resolution and no closure. Chris Herren's overdoses. Chris Herren was a McDonald's All-American, Big East star, second-round pick in 1999. Gorgeous jump shot, court vision that made coaches dream. But from his first taste of drugs as a teenager, he was running toward destruction. It started with alcohol and marijuana in high school. By college, cocaine. By the time he reached the NBA with Denver and Boston, OxyContin, and eventually heroin. His career lasted just 3 seasons. After basketball, Herren overdosed more than a dozen times. His wife found him unconscious on multiple occasions. Once his heart stopped for 30 seconds before paramedics revived him. He lost jobs, friendships, nearly his family. At his lowest, he was injecting heroin into his neck because the veins in his arms had collapsed. On August 1st, 2008, Herren overdosed one final time. He woke up in a hospital and made a decision. He got clean, and this time, it stuck. He has been sober since that day. Herren turned his experience into a mission. He founded the Herren Project to help people battling addiction find treatment and support. He travels the country speaking to students about the dangers of substance abuse. His documentary Unguarded aired on ESPN and reached millions of viewers. He became living proof that recovery is possible, even from the deepest holes. But he never pretends it is easy. His story is messy and raw and real. That honesty has saved more lives than his jump shot ever could. Latrell Sprewell's choking. On December 1st, 1997, Latrell Sprewell attacked his coach. During practice with the Warriors, PJ Carlesimo criticized his effort. Words were exchanged. Sprewell snapped. He grabbed Carlesimo by the throat and choked him for several seconds. Teammates pulled him off. 20 minutes later, Sprewell came back and went after Carlesimo again, throwing punches before being restrained a second time. The Warriors terminated his contract. The NBA suspended him for a full year, costing around $6 million. He returned with the Knicks in 1999 and rebuilt his career, made 3 more All-Star teams, led New York to the finals that same year. But the image of him choking his coach never fully faded. After leaving Minnesota in 2005, he turned down a $21 million extension, famously saying he had a family to feed. He never played in the NBA again. His yacht was repossessed. His mansion went into foreclosure. Reports indicated he owed hundreds of thousands in back taxes. The man who rejected millions found himself struggling to stay afloat. Talent got him to the top. Choices brought him back down. O.J. Mayo's ban. O.J. Mayo was the top recruit in the country coming out of high school, 3rd overall pick in 2008, all rookie first team. For a while, it looked like he would become everything scouts predicted. Then substance issues surfaced. In 2011, he tested positive for a banned substance and got suspended. After stints with Dallas and Milwaukee, his production declined. By 2016, he was out of the league entirely. On July 1st, 2016, the NBA dismissed Mayo for his 3rd drug policy violation, 2-year minimum ban. He never filed for reinstatement. As of now, he remains permanently banned. One of the few players in league history to carry that label. His downfall happened quietly. No viral videos, no public meltdowns, just a slow fade into nothing. A career that never reached its ceiling and a league that eventually closed its doors for good. Eddie Griffin's crash. Eddie Griffin had the tools to be a franchise player, 6'10" with length and athleticism, 7th overall pick in 2001. The Rockets believed he could anchor their front court for years. That dream never materialized. Off the court, Griffin battled demons that teammates could only glimpse. Depression, substance abuse, multiple incidents raised red flags. In 2002, he crashed his car while watching adult content on a portable DVD player. The headlines were bizarre. His play declined steadily. By 2007, he was out of the league. On August 17, 2007, Griffin died when his vehicle struck a moving train near a railroad crossing in Houston. He was 25 years old. Investigators concluded he was intoxicated. Some reports suggested he may have driven into the train intentionally. No definitive conclusion was ever reached. His death shocked the basketball community. Former teammates remembered his talent and his kindness, but also the warning signs that nobody seemed able to address. Antoine Walker's bankruptcy. Antoine Walker made over $110 million during his NBA career. 3-time All-Star. Championship with Miami in 2006. He bought houses, cars, jewelry, everything he wanted. By 2010, he was bankrupt. Filed for Chapter 7 protection listing debts over $12 million. Among the creditors were gambling casinos owed hundreds of thousands. He had taken loans against future earnings he could no longer repay. How did it happen? Walker later explained he supported a sprawling network of family and friends, buying homes for relatives, covering expenses for dozens of people who depended on him. He called it the entourage curse. Everyone wanted something and he never learned to say no. After bankruptcy, Walker went public with his mistakes. He partnered with financial literacy organizations to educate young athletes, spoke at schools and team facilities with brutal honesty, became a cautionary tale others could actually learn from. He lost homes, cars, security. What he gained was perspective. Scottie Pippen's losses. Scottie Pippen won 6 championships with the Bulls, named one of the 50 greatest players ever, over $100 million in career earnings. Somehow, he ended up suing people he trusted just to survive. His former financial advisor Robert Lunn was convicted of defrauding him through fake investments. Pippen had trusted Lunn completely, signing documents without reading them, assuming everything was handled properly. It was not, but the problems went beyond one bad actor. Pippen made questionable decisions himself. He purchased a private jet that sat unused while maintenance costs drained his accounts, invested in ventures that failed, bought property that depreciated. In 2016, he put his Fort Lauderdale mansion up for sale, paid $20 million for it, sold for far less. The Hall of Famer who helped build the Bulls dynasty was struggling to keep his financial head above water. Jaylen Rose's father. Jaylen Rose grew up on the west side of Detroit without ever meeting his biological father. That father was Jimmy Walker, the 1st overall pick in the 1967 NBA draft and a 2-time All-Star with the Pistons. Walker knew about Jaylen. He made no effort to be part of his life. Not a phone call, not a letter, not even an acknowledgement. Rose has spoken extensively about the pain that caused. He watched other kids with their dads at games, at school events, at home. He had questions that nobody could answer. Why did this man who was supposed to love him choose to stay away? The absence shaped everything about how Rose approached basketball, family, and identity. In 1997, Jimmy Walker died from lung cancer. Rose was in the league by then, a starting guard for the Pacers. He received word that his father wanted to see him before the end. Rose chose not to go. He could not bring himself to offer comfort to someone who had given him nothing but silence for his entire life. Years later, Rose reflected publicly on that decision. He said he carried guilt about it, but also understood why he made the choice he did. The wounds were too deep, too old, too raw. Meeting Walker on his deathbed would not have erased a lifetime of abandonment. Rose eventually channeled that pain into advocacy. He became a vocal supporter of fatherhood initiatives and mentoring programs. He talks openly about his story in hopes that other kids growing up without dads will know they are not alone. The anger softened over time, replaced by something closer to acceptance. But the scar remained. Darius Miles' breakdown. Darius Miles came into the NBA as a teenage phenom and walked away with $62 million in career earnings. By 2016, he was filing for bankruptcy. His reported assets sat around $460,000, while his debts ballooned past $1.5 million. Nearly $300,000 of that owed to the IRS bad investments and legal problems drained him. In 2011, Miles was arrested at the St. Louis airport after security found a loaded gun in his carry-on. But the biggest blow came off the court. In 2018, Miles wrote about battling depression and the overwhelming grief that followed his mother's death. Since then, he has found a new lane. He co-hosts the Knuckleheads podcast with Quentin Richardson. It gave him a new voice and a second chance to be heard. Money and talent do not shield you from pain. Luther Wright's homelessness. Luther Wright stood 7'2" and was drafted 18th overall by the Utah Jazz in 1993. Size, athleticism, every reason to thrive. But his NBA career ended almost as fast as it started. During his rookie season, things went sideways. In January 1994, he was found at a rest stop near Salt Lake City, smashing garbage cans and breaking car windows. That meltdown landed him in a psychiatric facility. Doctors diagnosed him with bipolar disorder. Not long after, the Jazz let him go. After that, Wright's life spun out completely. Substance abuse took over. He ended up homeless, wandering the streets with no plan, no resources, and no real help. At one point, he lost 2 toes to frostbite while living outside. He went from NBA courts to sleeping rough, just trying to survive each day. Eventually, Wright found something to hold on to. He connected with Morningstar Community Christian Center in New Jersey. Through the church, he got a support system and a reason to keep going. He also wrote a book called A Perfect Fit, where he opened up about the struggle, the collapse, and the attempt to find peace. His story is not about a comeback to basketball. It is about clawing back from nothing, from mental illness and addiction, learning to keep living anyway. Wright's fall was steep, but his survival is something most people never see. Melvin Turpin's end. Melvin Turpin made his name at Kentucky, All-American honors, Final Four in 1984, 6th overall pick by the Bullets, but his pro career never lived up to the college hype. 5 seasons with Cleveland, Utah, and Washington. Constant struggles with weight slowed him down. What should have been a dominant career faded fast. After the league, Turpin lived quietly. He worked as a security guard, including a post at the University of Kentucky Hospital. People described him as kind and approachable. On July 8, 2010, he was found dead in his Lexington home from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He was 49. The coroner confirmed suicide. No note was publicly reported. His death shocked the Kentucky basketball community. Former teammates remembered him as gentle and deeply private. Turpin's story points to something bigger. The quiet battles former athletes face after the game ends. Fame disappears. Routines vanish. The spotlight moves on. For Turpin, the silence became too much. Walter Davis's relapses. Walter Davis was one of the smoothest scorers the NBA had in the late 70s and 80s. 6-time All-Star, face of the Suns, master of the mid-range game. But behind the stats was a battle he eventually could not hide. In December 1985, after dropping 43 points on Golden State, Davis checked himself into rehab in Pasadena. He admitted struggling with cocaine and alcohol. Came back in January 1986 and kept playing well. It did not last. By April 1987, he relapsed and ended up back in treatment. His testimony led to indictments of several Suns players in a drug scandal. He was suspended for the final game of that season. The Suns brought him back the next year, but his performance slipped. They let him walk after 1988. He finished with Denver and Portland before retiring in 1992. The Suns retired his number 6 in 1994. In 2024, he was posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame. Davis showed what grace looks like on the court, and how hard it is to carry that same grace off of it. Chris Gatling's scam. Chris Gatling was an NBA All-Star known for his hustle and mid-range touch. After retirement, he ended up with more headlines off the court than he ever did on it. In December 2017, he was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison for running a telemarketing scam that targeted elderly victims in Arizona, promised fake website packages to seniors, collected over $155,000 from 12 victims. Some gave up their life savings. This was not even his first post-NBA legal mess. In 2013, he was caught illegally living in a Paradise Valley home he did not own, then trying to rent it out like he did. From All-Star Weekend to courtrooms and cons, his path shows how fast the spotlight fades when decisions start spiraling. Terry Furlow's death. Terry Furlow was 25 years old and coming off the best season of his NBA career when it all ended. On May 23, 1980, he was driving his Mercedes-Benz at around 120 miles per hour on Interstate 71 near Ohio. He lost control and crashed into a utility pole. The collision killed him instantly. The autopsy told a brutal story. Cocaine and Valium were in his system. Open beer cans and marijuana were found in the car. A young athlete battling far more than defenders. Furlow had just averaged 16 points and 4 assists for the Utah Jazz. He had been a star at Michigan State before that. Magic Johnson, one of his closest friends, was a pallbearer at his funeral. Furlow's story did not get the spotlight it deserved at the time. For those who knew him or watched him play, the talent was real, so was the struggle. He was not just another cautionary tale, he was a rising star who never got the chance to find out how high he could go. James and Curry's 13 arrests. James and Curry's basketball story started like a fairy tale. Record-breaking scorer in North Carolina. More points than Michael Jordan in high school. Top recruit in the country, but it did not take long for things to derail. In 2004, he was arrested in a drug sting and charged with multiple felonies tied to marijuana distribution. That cost him his scholarship to UNC. He pivoted to Oklahoma State, played well, got drafted 51st overall by the Bulls in 2007. He never played for them. Instead, Curry's name became more known in police reports than box scores. Over the years, he racked up 13 arrests. His actual NBA debut came in 2010 with the Clippers. It lasted exactly 3.9 seconds, the shortest career in league history. In 2017, he crashed his car reaching for a dropped phone. The wreck left him with broken ribs and a fractured back. He has since worked as a truck driver and youth coach, but those 13 arrests follow his name around louder than any high school stat ever did. Len Elmore's warning. During his time in the NBA in the 1970s, Len Elmore was not just another big man in the paint. He was one of the few voices willing to talk about what was really happening behind the scenes. And what he saw was clear. Drug use was everywhere. Elmore has openly described how substance abuse, especially cocaine, ran through locker rooms during that decade. It was not just a few isolated cases. It was cultural. Players used it casually, even openly. The league had no serious enforcement or structure to deal with it. That era of the NBA was flashy on the surface. Underneath, addiction and recklessness were taking root. It was not until the 1980s that the NBA started putting real drug policies in place. By then, several careers had already burned out. Elmore's perspective helps connect those dots, how the league's golden age was also a warning sign, and how ignoring the off-court realities came at a heavy price for a generation of talent. And if you enjoyed this, I will be posting more here. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.